I'll go to the press. You need help. This has to stop.
No one saw this coming. Not even Tunde Lawson. Sit tight. This will shock you.
Abuja never truly sleeps. Power doesn't sleep. Money doesn't sleep. And secrets breathe. The night Tunde Lawson died, even Maitama felt cautious, as if the wind itself understood that something irreversible was about to happen. The scream did not explode immediately. It broke, raw, sudden, the sound of a man realizing too late that control had slipped from his hands. Security lights flooded the senator's private compound. Boots struck polished marble. Radios crackled with rehearsed urgency. At first, the pool looked calm. Then they saw him. Tunde Lawson, Nigeria's youngest self-made tech billionaire, floated face down beneath the surface. His white shirt bloomed slowly into red, the color spreading in soft, deliberate waves. No movement, no struggle, just drifting. Upstairs, behind a half-drawn silk curtain, Zara Adeyemi stood perfectly still. She had heard the argument escalate. She counted the seconds after the splash. She did not scream. Her phone vibrated in her hand. "Father, stay in your room. I will handle it." Her lips curved, not into a smile, but into something quieter. He always handled it. To Nigeria, Zara Adeyemi was polished perfection. Oxford educated, she studied in London. Youth Empowerment Ambassador. Only daughter of Senator Adeyemi, kingmaker, deal broker, untouchable. Cameras loved her composure. Young women admired her discipline. Men admired her beauty. But admiration is built on illusion. Zara understood emotion the way a surgeon understands anatomy. She could identify it, replicate it, even manipulate it. She simply didn't feel it. Her laughter was measured. Her tears, when required, precise. Her smile never reached her eyes. The truth began long before London. When Zara was 7, the housemaid's son came crying that his puppy had disappeared. The compound searched for hours. It was Zara who eventually led them to the back garden. She stood there in a spotless white dress. The puppy lay beneath loose soil, buried alive. The boy screamed. The maid collapsed. Security panicked. Zara watched their faces carefully, memorizing the way grief distorted features. Later that evening, Senator Adeyemi sat across from his daughter in his study. "Why?" he asked. She tilted her head. "I wanted to see if it would try to escape." No fear, no shame. Doctors were consulted discreetly. They spoke in cautious tones. Conduct disorder, emotional detachment, escalating risk. They recommended intensive psychiatric intervention. The senator chose reputation over reality. "My daughter is not sick." Money moved, opinions shifted, records softened. Power does not argue, it erases. Years later in London, the patterns sharpened. At boarding school, teachers noticed how Zara responded to distress. When another girl cried after being bullied, Zara didn't comfort her. She observed. Her notebooks contained diagrams, not of fashion or poetry, but of control, of dominance, of fear. The school psychologist insisted on further evaluation. Within weeks, Zara was transferred. Her next roommate was Amara, soft-spoken, intelligent, too observant. One afternoon, while Zara was in class, Amara discovered a journal hidden beneath the mattress. There were no teenage confessions inside, only reflections on power, on the beauty of panic, on the weakness of emotional attachment. That night, Amara confronted her. "You need help," she whispered. Zara studied her. "Why would I want help?" she replied calmly. Later, raised voices echoed down the corridor. A scream, a violent thud. Amara's body was discovered on the pavement below the third-floor balcony. Suicide, the report concluded. Zara cried harder than anyone at the funeral. Teachers embraced her. The senator funded a new mental health wing. The case closed quickly. But someone had seen them arguing on that balcony. Michael. He kept silent at first. Then he asked for money. A week later, he died of an accidental overdose. The investigation faded, like everything else. When Zara returned to Abuja, she returned perfected, controlled, refined, untouchable. Then she met Tunde Lawson. At a charity gala, after her speech about hope and reform, he leaned closer and said quietly, "You don't believe half of what you just said." Most men worshipped her. He evaluated her. Instead of anger, she felt curiosity. People who are not afraid are either very intelligent or very breakable. Their relationship escalated quickly, intense, magnetic, dangerous. But Tunde was not blinded by charm. During a business trip to London, he heard fragments of an old story. A retired staff member remembered a scream, a transfer, a generous donation. Tunde began connecting dots. Financial records, disciplinary reports, psychiatric recommendations quietly buried. Patterns formed, and patterns once seen cannot be unseen.
The night he confronted her, the sky above Maitama was unnaturally clear. "Did you push her?" he asked beside the pool. His voice was steady. Zara did not blink. "If I did," she said softly, "would you leave?" That was when he understood. She wasn't denying it. "I'll go to the press," he said. "You need help. This has to stop." The word help irritated her. The word control obsessed her. He stepped closer, reached for her arm. Something ignited in her chest. Not fear, not love, rage. There was a struggle, quick, sharp. Wet marble shifted beneath his heel. His head struck the edge of the pool before the water swallowed him. He surfaced once, twice. His hand broke through the water, grasping, desperate. There is a moment when a person chooses, save or watch. Zara watched. She counted the seconds. When the movement stopped, she stepped back. Upstairs, a curtain moved. Her father had seen enough. By 9:47 p.m., sections of CCTV were under maintenance. By 10:12 p.m., staff were dismissed early. By midnight, the narrative was complete. Alcohol involvement, minor cardiac anomaly, tragic misstep. Money moved swiftly. Statements aligned. The senator handled it. He always did. But not everyone believed the story. Investigative journalist Aisha Bello built her career exposing quiet corruption in powerful offices. Tunde's death felt wrong. She examined patterns. London, Amara, Michael, now Tunde. All orbiting one name, Zara Adeyemi. In London, an elderly groundskeeper told her, "The girl didn't scream. Most children panic. She just observed." Aisha located a forgotten digital backup, psychological assessment, age 15, high intelligence, emotional detachment, manipulative tendencies, escalating fascination with dominance, recommendation, immediate psychiatric containment. When she returned to Abuja, she dug deeper. Phone logs, security gaps, deleted footage. Then she found something critical, an audio file stored in Tunde's cloud account. His voice. "Did you push her in London?" A pause. Zara's voice. Calm, almost amused. "You should have stayed out of my history." A splash. The file ended. Aisha understood what she was holding. Proof. Inside the mansion, Zara felt something unfamiliar pressing against her ribs. Not guilt, exposure. Exposure meant loss of control. "You are losing your grip," she told her father. "This is bigger than before," he replied quietly. For the first time, he looked afraid. Outside the compound, Aisha finalized her report. She did not know her brake lines had been tampered with. That night, as Abuja traffic thinned, her car accelerated down a familiar road. The brakes failed. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. The vehicle rolled before slamming into concrete. By morning, it was called a tragic accident. Zara visited the crash site the next afternoon. She stood near the scorched asphalt, sunglasses shielding her eyes, silent, still. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "I have the full recording. If anything happens to me, it goes public." For the first time in years, her pulse jumped because somewhere in Abuja, someone else had been watching, and this time, power might not be enough to bury the truth.
They thought the crash ended everything. By morning, the headlines were already polished. Tragic brake failure. Investigative journalist dies in highway accident. Another unfortunate loss. The story was neat, contained, convenient. But Aisha Bello had not built her career on carelessness. 3 hours before her car spun out of control, she sat alone in her apartment with the lights off and her laptop open. The city hummed beyond her windows. She replayed the audio one last time. Tunde's voice, steady but tense. "Did you push her in London?" Silence. Then Zara, calm, almost entertained. "You should have stayed out of my history." The sound of water swallowing everything. Aisha closed her eyes briefly. Then she began uploading. Encrypted folders, multiple cloud accounts, 2 international media organizations, 3 trusted colleagues, and 1 timed release. If her phone went inactive for 12 hours, if she failed to check in, if anything happened to her, the files would send automatically. She labeled the folder with one word: insurance. Later that night, when her brakes failed at high speed and metal twisted against concrete, someone somewhere believed the threat had been eliminated. They underestimated her. At 6:58 p.m. the next evening, newsrooms across the country received an email. Subject line: "If you are reading this, I am dead." Attached were the audio recording, psychiatric reports from London, financial transfers linked to the senator's office, notes outlining the pattern of deaths. Editors stared at their screens in silence. At exactly 7 p.m. during primetime television, the recording aired. The anchor hesitated before pressing play. Tunde's voice filled living rooms across Nigeria. "Did you push her in London?" A pause that felt endless. Then Zara, soft, controlled: "You should have stayed out of my history." The sound of water swallowing everything. The splash echoed through speakers nationwide, in living rooms, in restaurants, in government offices where conversations abruptly stopped. Phones lit up instantly. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere, shared, dissected, replayed. Commentators slowed down the audio, analyzing tone and breath. Influencers posted reactions. Legal experts debated implications. The perfect princess was no longer a rumor. She was a voice. Inside the mansion in Maitama, silence pressed against the walls. Security lines rang non-stop. Political allies suddenly became unreachable. Statements were drafted and redrafted. Upstairs, Zara sat alone, watching the broadcast replay her words. Her face did not change. No tears, no hysteria, but her fingers tightened slightly around the remote. For the first time in her life, the narrative was no longer in her control. Outside the compound gates, journalists gathered in clusters. Protesters began forming with handwritten signs: "Justice for Tunde," "Justice for Aisha." The senator stood in his study, phone pressed to his ear, listening to advisors argue over strategy, damage control, emergency injunctions, media suppression. But there's a difference between silencing whispers and silencing a nation that has already heard the truth. Zara turned off the television.
Her reflection stared back at her from the black screen. Exposure. That was the sensation pressing against her ribs. Not guilt, not remorse, exposure. Footsteps approached behind her. Her father entered the room slowly. For the first time, she saw something unfamiliar in his eyes. Fear. Not for her, for himself. And somewhere beyond the mansion walls, beyond power and influence and carefully arranged lies, the truth was no longer breathing in the dark. It was standing in daylight.
The arrest did not happen quietly. It happened at dawn, not because they wanted drama, but because they wanted control of it. Convoys entered the Maitama compound before sunrise. Flashing lights painted the white walls in restless red and blue. Officers moved carefully, aware that this was not an ordinary arrest. This was the daughter of a sitting senator. Inside the mansion, Zara was already awake. She had not slept. She wore a simple cream dress, no makeup, no jewelry, her hair pulled back neatly, as if preparing for a press conference rather than custody. When the lead officer entered the living room, warrant in hand, his voice was firm but cautious. Zara Adeyemi, you are under arrest in connection with the deaths of Tunde Lawson and the ongoing investigation related to Aisha Bello. There was a pause. Everyone watched her. She did not resist. She did not cry. She extended her hands calmly. The click of the handcuffs echoed louder than the scream by the pool ever had. As they guided her toward the door, she turned her head slightly toward her father. He stood a few feet away, surrounded by lawyers, phone pressed tightly in his hand. For the first time in years, he looked powerless. She leaned slightly toward him and whispered, "You created me." The words were not emotional. They were factual. Outside the gates, cameras exploded in flashes. Microphones stretched forward like weapons. Protesters shouted her name, some with rage, some in disbelief. The princess had fallen. Or so it seemed. The trial divided the nation. Some called her a monster, calculating, remorseless, dangerous. Others called her a victim of power and privilege, a product of a system that shields the wealthy from consequences. The courtroom became a theater. Psychologists testified about early warning signs, emotional detachment, conduct disorder, escalating manipulation. Financial experts traced suspicious transfers tied to witness silencing. The audio recording was played repeatedly. Each time her voice echoed through the courtroom, calm and measured, the tension thickened. You should have stayed out of my history. Her defense team attacked the evidence relentlessly. The recording could be edited. The psychological files were old. There was no direct video proof of murder. Circumstantial, they argued, speculation, political sabotage. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, powerful conversations were taking place. Allies weighed risk versus loyalty. The senator's influence had limits, and those limits were being tested. Weeks turned into months. Public outrage began to dull. News cycles shifted. Other scandals demanded attention. Witnesses grew hesitant. Memories blurred. And doubt, even manufactured doubt, is powerful in a courtroom. When the verdict finally came, the air inside the courtroom felt suffocating. Insufficient evidence. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Zara did not react. No smile, no relief, just stillness. Outside the courthouse, chaos erupted. Some screamed injustice. Others shouted that the system had worked. Cameras flashed as she stepped out, flanked by lawyers. She wore dark sunglasses this time. Polished, composed, untouched. Her father stood behind her, face unreadable. The case had collapsed. Legally, she was free. As reporters shouted questions, she paused briefly at the top of the courthouse steps. Across the crowd, beyond the chaos and flashing lights, she noticed someone watching her. A young man, curious, intelligent eyes, not afraid. He held her gaze a second too long, and slowly, he smiled. For the first time since the arrest, Zara's lips curved in response. Because some monsters do not hide in shadows. They adapt, they evolve, they survive in daylight. And somewhere, deep beneath the noise of the crowd, beneath the illusion of justice, one truth remained quietly alive. This story was not over.
The mansion was quiet, too quiet. Senator Adeyemi sat in his study, tired from years of power, politics, and influence. He thought he controlled everything, every narrative, every person, every outcome. He had shielded her for years, destroyed reports, silenced warnings, paid off the inconvenient, dismissed doctors' concerns, all in the name of reputation, pride, and control. He did not realize that silence grows teeth. Zara moved like a shadow, graceful and deliberate through the marble halls. Years of observation, calculation, and patience had brought her here. Every warning he had ignored, every alarm he had silenced had trained her. She entered his study, a small cup in her hand. Tea, lightly scented, warm, familiar. He smiled, unaware of the danger. "Ah, my daughter, still awake?" "I wanted to talk," she said softly. Her voice carried calm, precision, and something colder underneath, the result of years of neglected warning signs. He chuckled, shaking his head. "You've always been difficult to read." Her eyes studied him, every twitch, every micro-expression, every heartbeat, every breath. "You remember London, don't you?" she whispered. "The warnings you burnt, the advice you ignored, the people you silenced." A shadow passed over his face. Memories flickered. Amara, Michael, the reports he had destroyed. I did what I thought was best," he faltered. Zara stepped closer. "No, you chose pride over help, reputation over life, and now the consequences have come home." He tried to arise from his chair, but the room felt heavy. Something was wrong. His hands shook slightly. "Zara," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Why?" She knelt beside him, gently brushing a stray hair from his forehead. "Because you ignored me, Father. Because you refused to protect me. Because you never chose help over pride." The poison was slow, methodical. She had dosed it carefully over dinner, under the guise of a rare herbal supplement she claimed would calm his heart. Years of calculation had made this moment inevitable. He coughed. A shiver ran down his spine. Panic flashed in his eyes. I thought I was protecting you," he gasped. Her hand rested lightly on his arm, warm, calm, controlled. "You thought you were protecting the world, but you only protected your image, and images do not save lives." His eyes filled with realization and fear, regret, helplessness. "You're my greatest mistake," he whispered. "No," she said softly, almost sorrowfully. "I am your consequence. I am the echo of every warning you ignored, every doctor you silenced, every moment you chose pride over love." His breath faltered, the poison spread. His chest rose once, and then stopped. Zara remained kneeling beside him. Not a smile, not laughter, just stillness, calmness, and grief, the kind that comes not from feeling guilt, but from understanding what was created by neglect. The mansion would never speak of it. The world would mourn a great senator. They would praise him as a hero. They would never know the truth. The greatest danger is not always external. Sometimes it is nurtured in silence. Sometimes it grows from neglect. Sometimes it lives in the shadows of pride.
Zara rose, walking to the window. Outside, Abuja continued, lights flickering over streets that would never guess what had happened in this mansion. She whispered, almost to herself, almost to the wind, "I am not a monster, Father. You made me. You chose to hide the truth, to ignore the cries, to silence help. And now, I carry the weight of what you refused to face." Her eyes glistened, not with guilt, not with hatred, but with understanding, the most chilling kind of understanding, the kind that grows from knowing the world's cruelty and surviving it. The lesson: monsters are not always born. Sometimes they are ignored. Sometimes warnings are silenced. Sometimes pride and power are chosen over help. When a child shows dangerous behavior, when professionals raise alarms, when emotional detachment escalates into harm, do not ignore it. Do not hide it. Do not let reputation replace treatment. Help early, seek guidance, protect life over image. Because untreated darkness does not disappear, it grows, and when it finally surfaces, it carries consequences no wealth or power can erase. If this story touched you, shocked you, or made your heart pound, leave a comment below. Subscribe for more gripping, dark, and unforgettable stories that reveal the consequences of power, silence, and neglect. Never ignore warning signs. Never hide the truth. Seek help early. It could save a life.